Hello world, and welcome to this edition of Tech on Fire with Blaze. I'm Blaze Stewart, architect at Winelect, and today we're going to be talking about application security groups on Microsoft Azure and how you can use these to apply network policies using network security groups with application security groups. Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at application security groups on Microsoft Azure. Now this is a pretty cool way to apply network traffic policies to virtual machines on Azure. So basically what it allows us to do is create logical groupings of virtual machines and then treat those groups of virtual machines as a set of virtual machines as an application. So I can apply network policies based on just the logical groupings of those virtual machines. So I want to allow something like port 80 into a set of web servers. I don't have to create a single rule for each one of those virtual machines on the subnet, or even try to create a logical abstraction such as a subnet where I'm taking those virtual machines, putting them into a subnet, and then applying a subnet wide network security group on port 80 or something like that. What this allows me to do is just apply a policy to a group of VMs that can be on the same subnet as something like a database set of VMs as well. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility in our network topologies on Azure. So let's go look at a slide, and I think it'll help us understand how this works a little bit better, and then we'll go over to the Azure portal and then look at how to set this up. So let's say I have a set of virtual machines, and these are a set of web servers that are serving up a web application, maybe a set of web applications, and these are in a load balance configuration. So let's take these virtual machines and let's put an application security group around it and call it front end. Now, once I have the application security group created, I can then create a rule in a network security group that applies to this application security group for, say, port 443 or port 80. And then I can have my clients connect to that particular virtual machine, whichever one it might be, through a load balancer, and it will accept those requests because I have created a policy that allows for traffic into the application security group on port 443 or port 80, which are standard ports for the HTTP or HTTPS protocols. And this is a very common use case for application security groups because it allows me to create a single policy for a set of virtual machines rather than having to create a subnet, then apply a policy to the subnet, and then create a separate subnet for, say, something like databases. With application security groups, what I can then do is take my databases and put those into a application security group and call that backend. And then what I can then do is create policy between my front end application security group and my back end application security group. Even if they're on the same subnet, I can do this. So this basically allows me to have my application and my database sit on the same subnet without having to create different subnets and then create two NICs on my front end so that one is straddling the front end subnet and the back end subnet so that the traffic is actually flowing across the VM. This just basically allows me to create VMs that have a single NIC on the same subnet that allows me to communicate between the application security groups on that same subnet. So I can apply the rule to the group of VMs and then allow traffic, say, from application security group 1 into my backend set of databases on, say, port 1443 for SQL Server, or some other port that is used for, say, something like 3306 for MySQL or whatever might be running on those backend servers. So again, this is just a way to logically group virtual machines together and then manage the network traffic based on the group of virtual machines. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility in our networking on Azure. So let's go over to the Azure portal and then take a look at how to set this up. And we'll do a demo where we have application security groups with different policies applied to them, and we will control access basically through those groups, and we will be able to use all those same groups in the same subnet without having to create multiple subnets or multiple layers for my application. I'm here in the Azure portal, and I want to create a demo using these three VMs that I have created here. I have VM1, VM2, and VM3, and they're all in this same VNet, all in the same subnet on this VNet. And currently I don't have any network security groups applied to this because I'm going to create one, and I'm going to use my application security groups in conjunction with a network security group to create the network policies for these. So I've already logged into one of these virtual machines, and it is this one right here, VM1, and it's the first one, 10.0.1.4, and I want to ping the other two. So this is 10.0.1.5 that I'm currently pinging, and it is VM2, and I can currently connect to that VM. So I'm going to kill the connection here, and let's go to 6 right here, and this is pinging VM3. So this shows me that I have connectivity between VM1, VM2, and VM3, and I can connect to both VM2 and VM3 from VM1. What I want to do though is restrict my access from VM1 to VM3, but I want to allow VM1 to connect to VM2, and then I want to allow VM2 to connect to VM3. So that would give me essentially 3 layers in a network topology. So I can do this with application security groups. So let's go over to the Azure portal and create an application security group to do what I just described there a second ago. So I'm going to click on add right here, and I'm going to search for security group. And let's see if I can find that. And that's going to search the marketplace. And I have network security group, which I'm going to need in a minute, but I'm first going to create a application security group right here. I'm going to call this one, let's just call it application ASG1. And let's make sure it's in the same region, same resource group, everything looks good. And let's create this one. And this is basically just a logical grouping for my particular virtual machines, like I said. So this doesn't really have any cost associated with it. It's just a logical grouping. So it's just more a way of organizing things inside of your Azure resource groups or wherever you might be using these. So I have now my application security group created. Let's see if I can find that there. Let's see, where did I put that guy? Let's go to app groups again and make sure that's refreshed. There it is, ASG1. So I'm going to create another one for my backend VM, and that's going to be this one right here. And my backend VM, I'm going to apply 2 more security groups here. I'm going to create one for this one and for this one. And let's create 2 more security groups here. Groups. And let's go ahead and apply this one to the same resource group, and let's call it ASG2, and review and create this one. And let's do the same thing for my third one that I want to deploy here. Let's go ahead and add in security group, security group. Let's see if that will find it. There, your application security group. Create another one, call it ASG3, and put it in the same resource group and in the same region as my other 2 security groups that I've already created. Now, a security group, typically for production-oriented environments, as I'm doing a demo here, would have more than 1 VM in it, but you can also just assign 1 VM to a security group if you want to treat these as objects that are autonomous objects inside of your particular subnet. Now I could put more than 1 VM in a security group, but I'm doing this mostly to show you how you can use the security groups to maintain the policies on a network security level. So the first thing I need to do then is, once I've created the security groups, is to assign the particular VMs to these security groups. Now to do that, I need to come into the VM itself and click on networking right here. And this will give you the ability to create the applications, configure the application security groups right here. So I can go configure the application security groups. So I'm going to assign VM1 to ASG1, and I have ASG1 right there, and I'm going to save. Not sure why ASG2 didn't show up, as it's still creating. Let's go see why that is the case. Anyways, I created application security group 1, and I assigned the first VM to it. Oh, I created a network security group for that. I need to delete that. That's not right. And let's delete that, and then let's clean this up a little bit. I created the wrong thing. So let's delete that and go ahead and delete ASG2. That should be NSG for a network security group, not ASG. But while that's deleting, let's go ahead and assign VM3 to ASG3. So I'm going to come over here and select configure application security groups right here and assign this one to ASG3 and save that. And we will come back over here to our application security group resource group that I'm using for here, and let's create another security group, not a network security group. I want an application security group, and let's create this guy. Let's call it ASG2. Review and create this guy, and that will create pretty quickly. And we'll come back to our resource group, and let's go ahead and configure VM2 into ASG2. So again, go over here to networking, click on application security group, configure the application security groups, and choose ASG2 here. Now I've assigned all my virtual machines to security groups. And with this, now I can apply policy based on security groups. But to do that, I need a network security group. So let's go ahead and create our network security group inside of the Azure portal. So I'm going to come back over here and add another resource, network security group. And let's see if I can find that. There it is. And create that. And it's going to go into my app groups, and I'm going to call it NSG1. Review and create this guy. And these create pretty fast too. Now, once this is done, what I need to do is then go into my subnet and associate this particular NSG with my subnet. So currently there aren't any, so I'm going to go here to associate. I'm going to choose the app groups VNet that those VMs are on, and I'm going to choose the only subnet that's available, default. And this is going to take this particular network security group and assign it to the subnet that all my VMs are on. Now I can use this network security group to create policies with. And this is where I can use my application security groups inside of my policies. So if I wanted to allow, say, incoming connections for my virtual machine 1, that's my public-facing virtual machine, I want to say source any, and if I wanted to use a source of any, I can also use a service tag. I could use source is internet-based traffic, any port, destination port, any source port. I'm going to put destination port, and my destination I'm going to choose application security group. I'm going to choose ASG1. So what this policy is doing is saying anything that is coming from the internet, so that's any external IP address that's internet-facing, any internet origin traffic coming into my virtual network here that has any source port, I don't care what the source port is, and it's bound for port 22, or really anything in application security group 1 on port 22, I'm going to allow this. That means that this is my general SSH rule for my VM that is in my application security group. So this means that I have now applied a port-based rule based on my application security group. So everything that is inside of this particular ASG right here would inherit this rule. So if I put another virtual machine in that application security group, it would now allow me to connect to both of those virtual machines on port 22 if they're both in that application security group. And this is a fairly straightforward rule right here. But here's where things get a little bit more interesting with application security groups. So what I want to do now is I want to create that backend rule where I only want application security groups, say ASG2, to connect to ASG3. So that means that I can't connect to ASG3 from ASG1. So to do that, I'm going to say source application security group, and I'm going to select ASG2, and I'm going to say any port, any destination port, any protocol, allow. And the destination is going to be an application security group of ASG3. So that means traffic originates in ASG2 and it's bound for ASG3, any port, any protocol, I'm going to allow. So I'm going to say ASG2 to ASG3 is the name of this rule. And let's go ahead and add that policy in. So to make this stick though, what I want to do is make another rule that will block anything bound for ASG3. So the way that this works is top down. So the first match wins. So if I refresh this, you should share a new rule here. And so this one says traffic from ASG2 to ASG3, source, destination, allow that. But I want to add in a new rule here, and I'm going to block anything other than ASG2 from coming into ASG3. So I'm just say source any source port range, ASG3, destination port any protocol, any port. I'm going to deny access, and I'm going to set the priority to 105, so that is going to be 120, so that it shows up after my priority right here. So this basically allows traffic that matches this pattern here, ASG2 to ASG3, but anything else, because I have this rule now right here, I need to edit this rule right here. Need to change that to any port. That's the name, the rule. I misnamed it. It should be, let's go ahead and delete this rule and rename it appropriately. And we'll recreate it just to make sure that my naming conventions are good here. So let's go ahead and close this out and let that delete. And let's go back in and add it. Source, any, destination, application security group, port, any, application destination, application security group 3, any destination, any port, priority 120. And I'm going to say block ASG3 inbound. Something like that. And that will allow me to have a good naming convention for things like allow traffic inbound. This is basically blocking everything inbound that is going to ASG3, but because it's a lower priority, anything that is originating in ASG2 will meet this rule first, and then 4 will be allowed. Anything else, though, however, won't be allowed because of this rule right here. So if this works, I should be able to come back down here inside of my ping and try to ping my VM3 from VM1, and it won't work. I should get a connection timeout or something like that. So I went off camera for a minute and I realized that I had this action set to allow. I set it to deny now, so that this rule is actually going to block traffic into this network security group now. So let's go back and test this. I'm back here on VM1, and so let's ping the 10.0.1.6. So this is VM3. I should expect this not to work. It should block the traffic, and it would appear that is what it is now doing. So unless I am on VM2, I cannot access VM3. So this is not allowing me to access VM3 from VM1. So let's see if I can access VM2 right here. I'm still able to ping VM2 from VM1, but I can't ping VM3 from VM1. So with this layered approach, what I should be able to do, though, is SSH into Blaze at 10.0.1.5, and this will allow me to connect to the virtual machine that is in ASG2, because I don't have any policy set up for it yet. And let's go ahead and type the password in, and now I am logged on to VM2 right here. You can see that this says VM2. So let's go ahead and see if I can ping 10.0.1.6 from VM2. Now this one is letting me a ping 10.0.1.6 from VM2 because of this policy right here, because it's a higher priority right here. And this is basically just saying, because the traffic is originating from VM2 going to VM3, I now have the ability to connect to that back in VM that is in Application Security Group 3. This is the only group that can talk to it. So anything that's in ASG2 could talk to ASG3, but anything that's not in that group, such as VM1, it will block that traffic. So this allows me to apply some fairly granular control around particular VMs based on grouping them together in logical groupings, not having to create some complex networking topologies like we would see with something like layered subnets and so on. So this is just a quick demo on how application security groups work, but I hope it's enough to give you the idea of what you can do with these and how they do work with virtual machines on Azure. If you like this content, please consider visiting us online at www.wintelect.com, and there you can find about services that Wintelect offers, including training and consulting services. Also, please consider subscribing to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button and clicking the bell icon to get notifications when new content becomes available, and also comment down below. You can also follow me on Twitter at @TheOneMule, and also follow Wintelect on Twitter at WintelectNow or at Wintelect. We are constantly posting things about Azure-related technologies and things related to software development. You can also reach us by email at consulting@wintelect.com. Until next time, thank you.